Welcome back to the Ruck Shop YouTube channel. In today's video we will be installing the Airbox Eliminator kit on the Honda Ruckus / Honda Metropolitan platform. In this kit you're going to receive the intake hose with the PVC coupler, the uni filter if you chose the Type 2, or you'll get the K&N style filter if you choose the Type 1. You'll get the breather filter for the uni, the small filter there, the hose clamp, and then the jet kit. We will be going over the installation of this on the bike and what is needed to be done, as well as a couple extras that could be used while installing the Airbox kit, such as the part valve block off from TRS and then the TRS intake bracket. Next up, we're going to get up into the tools that will be needed for the install, and then we'll go ahead and get started with this install. For this install, we recommend you use the tools below here: needle nose pliers, a set of snips, a Phillips head screwdriver, a 12mm open end, and then a ratchet with a 10mm socket. For today's video, we're going to be doing this install on a Honda Metropolitan. It's going to be very similar with the Honda Ruckus, so we'll go over everything as if you were to do it on either platform to make sure that all angles are covered. The first thing we're going to do is take off the factory airbox, which will have 3 spots that use a 10mm, one in the front, one at the top of the airbox, and then one on the rear, which I'll bring the camera around and show you now. Here's the first 10mm. The second 10mm is up over here, and then the third 10mm is right here. As you can see, we had to get a little bit better lighting for that. So you're going to go ahead and remove those 3 right now. Next, on the top of the carb, you're going to use your pliers, remove this little hose squeeze clamp here off the side of the carburetor. Then you're going to use your Phillips head and loosen up the top hose clamp for the mouth of the carburetor. And go ahead and yank that off once you have it loose enough. So then you will take your clamps and go ahead and remove the clamp that you see on the top of the airbox here. This one goes to the valve cover. And then you are also going to have one more that comes off from the airbox that you're going to notice runs along the frame and goes underneath the gas tank. That one doesn't clamp to anything, it just pulls right out, so you can go ahead and pull that through and then remove it once you remove the factory airbox. And the last one is you're going to remove the hose off the EGR valve that goes to the airbox. You can go ahead and just pull that off for the time being. On the Ruckus, it is going to actually be on the back side of the frame, the back right side, and the hose is going to run across to the airbox. There you go. So now the airbox is removed. We're going to move on to the next steps. So you see here towards the front of the motor, the cylinder head, there is the par valve. You will want to block that off. So you can remove that hose and put a cap on it, or we have another option, which is our par valve block off that you can order, and it removes the factory 2 10mm bolts and then it just caps it off for a cleaner look. And this is what the par valve block off from the Ruck Shop looks like. Just 2 holes, comes with supplied stainless steel Allen head bolts, and it will just go right here in place of your factory par valve. If you don't want to get this, that's fine. Like I said, you just cap off this because you want this to be capped off. This is the only part that you're going to cap off on the entire airbox removal. The hose coming off the valve cover here, you're going to go ahead and pull it through going to have a lot of excess slack. And you're going to want to cut this about 6 to 8 inches down and just let it hang straight down atmospherically. Just like that. Next, with the EGR, there was the hose coming off of that went to the airbox. Typically you can cut that at about 6 inches as well and let that dump atmospherically. And that's going to go same thing for the Ruckus. And when you can cut it on the Ruckus, there's a little groove in the back frame that you can just go ahead and slide the hose through. With the Metropolitan, you can just let it dump just like so. The next step is you're going to remove the carburetor. So what you can do is take that 12 mil and loosen up the factory throttle cable. And then on your intake boot there, the insulator boot, you're going to go ahead and break free with the Phillips head. And you only need to do one of these clamps that are on the coupler. There's a groove in the coupler, so when you're taking the carburetor out, it might feel like it's stuck in there. You just have to wiggle it side to side and it should break free. So now that you have the carb free from the insulator boot, you're going to notice that at the base of the carb, there are 2 clamps there. And that is the coolant passage. So what you want to do is get those needle nose, and then you're going to squeeze each one and then remove each line at the base. And the last thing is going to be the fuel line, which will be going into the side of the carburetor. When it comes to jetting the carburetor, we're going to put a link in the description below, and we'll go over how to jet this carburetor to help save time. So when we come back, we will have this carburetor jetted and back for installation. So now we have our carburetor installed. It's been jetted and put back on. You can go ahead and put your clips back in. The next step that we're going to do is put the intake hose on. That's provided with the Airbox Eliminator kit, as well as the hose clamp, which we're going to use a flathead screwdriver for. The end that doesn't have the PVC coupler will go onto the intake mouth. We'll slide it on like so, and then you're going to want this hose to turn out just like so in the back half of the bike. And you can see by the bend of this hose how it comes up and around that it does this to avoid the rear tire. Now Felix is going to go ahead and tighten this hose clamp on, and we'll get on to the next step. Next up, we're going to be installing the red uni filter onto the PVC coupler. You're going to want to loosen up the hose clamp, slide it over the PVC coupler, and then you can go ahead and tighten up the hose clamp. This is going to work the same for the Type 1 intake, which is the K&N style intake as well. Once you have that tightened and on the hose, you're going to next take the small uni breather filter, remove that from the box, and that's going to go onto the side of the carburetor right here, and we'll go ahead and mount that up next. So next you will slide the filter over the side of the nipple on the side of the carb, and then tighten that hose clamp on so the breather filter can stay on. One other option that you can do, just like the par valve plate that I showed you, is the TRS intake bracket. And what that will do is it'll eliminate the white PVC coupler that's inside of the intake hose there. And then one side will go onto the intake bracket, and then the filter will go on the other side of the intake bracket, and then it mounts to the CVT. And that just gives it a little bit more rigidity to the intake itself. But there you have it. That is the Airbox Eliminator Type 2. And again, it works for the Type 1. And the same thing will go for the TVR as well. Not a bad install, not too difficult. The only other thing that I will say is your factory fender will now have no mount on the side that you did the airbox. So if you are trying to keep it, you will have to manufacture your own bracket or a way to secure it. Typically, when you do the airbox kit, a lot of people will get rid of the rear fender when they do the exhaust and intake. I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.